Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshikam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vedyat Raminam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Guru. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So for our new person, the first chant is 3 verses of a hymn called the Guru Stotram, the hymn to the Guru, which I chant out of to invoke the grace of my teacher, Swami Chinmayananda. And the second one is one of the Shanti mantras, the blessings, the prayers that invokes our good study together. So, Mark, what verse are we on this evening?
We're at 562, 562.
562. Puneet, will you help us out? Yeah.
Prajnanad ghanam ityat malakshanam satyasuchakam anyudhyopadikasyaiva kathanyante vinashanam. The embodiment of consciousness. In these words, the scripture indicates the nature of the self, established its reality, and voiced the destruction of apparent conditionings only.
So the term he's used here is prajnana ganam, which he quotes from Mandukya Upanishad, a homogeneous mass of consciousness. Here Swamiji translates it as the embodiment of consciousness. So the idea here is, what is my essential nature? You are not an it, you are a who. You are being itself. So when I've negated the upadis, the conditionings, I'm not the body, I'm not the prana, I'm not the mind, I'm not the thoughts, I'm not the ego sense, not even the darkness of ignorance. The space between your thoughts. Who is it who sees the thoughts and the silence, the space between the thoughts? And there's nothing there. But it's not no thing. There is Chid Akash, the vast empty space of pure awareness. And it's full of being, always experienced as I. Homogeneous mass of consciousness. This one, Jesus. What about this phenomenal world? Nama Satyam Jagan Mithya. This consciousness, this Brahman alone is real. Phenomenal world, it's like a movie. How does it come about? By means of imagination. Don't worry. Its ground of being is never changed, never altered. Safe. It's always safe. Next verse.
Vinashi va areyam atmeti shrutirātmanah prabhavitya vinashitvam vinashatsu vikarishu. Immortal is this Atman, my dear. This passage from the scriptures speak of the immortal in the midst of things finite and subject to modification.
Vinashi, is that what he said?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a wonderful word. Nashati means to be destroyed. Vinashati would be completely destroyed. Avinashi is something that is never, ever subject to destruction. So everything in this world of name and form, in the beginning as non-existence, when somebody makes it or it's born or it's created, it comes into existence, and it gets destroyed. It goes out of existence. But look to your own direct experience. Everything in the external, all the situations, places you've lived, are gone. How many of the relationships are gone? Loved ones, gone. Jobs, gone. Bank accounts, gone. But you are an eternal factor. Anytime you think to stop a moment, look within and notice the knower. There's still nothing there but the space of pure awareness. It is never destroyed. Well, how do I know it's not going to be destroyed when I die? And I always say, just open a photo album and look at a photo of yourself when you were a child, 10 years old, or even a teenager, 15, 18. Where is that body? Dead. Down the drain, down the toilet. But did you for a moment ever cease to be? And what Shankar is saying, even when the body drops off, you are avinasham, absolutely indestructible. And what's the truth of this world? Anitya, impermanent, non-eternal. All of the names and forms are temporary. Now, This doesn't mean to be nihilistic. It means just don't have an unrealistic view of the world. I may have shared this with you. Back in the 80s, my roommate, Perry, was diagnosed with AIDS, and it was transformational for him. He began to live his life fully for the first time since I knew him. We were friends for 11 years. Because he knew when he would have an experience, very likely it was going to be the last time. So it was so clear this life is not a rehearsal. So the person of steady wisdom is able to live a fearless life with the firm awareness. All the names and forms are just going to slip through your fingers. But something there is that's indestructible. For those of us who are still practicing, stop during the day, introvert the attentive faculty, keep noticing the noticer. See if it ever changes. Oh, Jim, during lunchtime I looked inside and there was a little gray ball with wings. Myself changed into that. No. It was terrible. Tea time came. I looked inside. Nothing. I had disappeared. How do you know it? I saw it. Who saw it? I did. You did not disappear. Don't believe me. Don't believe Shankar. Look. Next verse.
Ashana, Vrikshatrishna, Dhanya, Kadak, Kangradhya, Dagadha, Bhavanti, Hrideva, Yatha Tathaiva, Dehendriya Sumana, Adi Samasta Drishyam, Jnanakti, Dagadham, Upayati, Paramatma Bhavam. Just as stone, tree, straw, grain, husk, and so on are reduced to ashes when burnt, so too the whole objective universe, comprising the body, sense organs, pranas, mind, and so on, are reduced to the Supreme Self when burnt in the fire of knowledge.
So this does not mean at the end of the age everything gets burnt up. We have in Hindu mythology when Lord Shiva opens his third eye, the whole world is reduced to ashes. It has a subtler meaning. When the 5-year-old learns that Santa Claus isn't real, Santa Claus is reduced to ashes. When the child sees the rainbow and says, Mommy, let's get in the car and drive and find the end of the rainbow. And then discovers that it's just light passing through water vapor in the atmosphere. Then the solid rainbow is reduced to ashes. Driving through the desert, you see the lake up ahead, you keep driving and you realize it's a mirage. The lake has been reduced to ashes. There's an old Zen proverb Before enlightenment, I chopped wood and carried water. After enlightenment, I chop wood and carry water. Before realization of the self, the world seems concrete and solid, inherently joy-giving or misery-producing. And the jnani sees the world as it is. The same names and forms appear to the senses, but to the jnani, their knowledge is nitya, illusion. It's all imagination. It's all the play of the mind. Don't worry. What's real is never touched by it. I was working with a student this afternoon. We were doing third chapter of the Mandukya Upanishad Karika. And Gaudapada there borrows a phrase from Gita, asparsha yoga. The root is prichati, which means the touch. Asparsha means untouched. Yoga means joy. So because of me, the body moves, the prana activates, the mind feels, the intellect thinks, the senses perceive. Without me, they cannot. I am the enlivening force. Yet, asangoham, unattached. None of it touches. Like the center of the hurricane. Everything whips around the whole world. That still point. It's never touched. Again, don't believe me. Next verse.
Vilakshanam yatha dhvantam liyate bhanu tejasi tathaiva sakalam drishyam brahmani praviliyate. Just as darkness, which is distinctly different from sunlight, vanishes in the sun's effulgence, so too this entire objective universe vanishes into Brahman.
Yes. So the idea here is there is no action that's opposed to darkness. It's the story about the drunken king who awakens smashed in the middle of the night, and his chamber is dark, and he screams for the servants to bring brooms to sweep out darkness. Then the ministers bring torches, and light dispels darkness. So in the end, there's no religious ritual. There's no physical yogic practice. There's no amount of repetitions of mantra. There's no amount of chanting in kirtan. that will liberate us. No ecstatic dance. Only knowledge of the self dispels the darkness of ignorance. How do I gain knowledge of the self? Vicharena, by means of investigation. Stop. Still mind. Made pure by my letting go of agitations, attachments, and identification. Who am I? One of the names for ego in the scriptures is Chit Chaya. Chaya means a shadow. So this egoism is a phony self. It's a false self. It's fake news. And like a shadow, it only seems to appear when you don't go looking at it. When the mind is directed outward at the world of name and form, or even outward at thoughts and feelings, there's the assumption of an individual person. All you have to do is redirect the attentive faculty. Go looking for yourself. Oh, Jim, I'm a nervous person. No, wait a minute. Do you see nervousness? Yes. You're not the nervousness, you're the knower of it. Oh, I'm an abuse survivor. Who knew the abuse? I did. Who is aware of the triggers? I am. You are not any of that. You're the one who knows it all. Oh, Jim, I have a disability. This doesn't work. That's only a condition of the body. Who knows it? Who are you? And when we go looking for this individual self, it falls, it evaporates because it's nothing real. What we find is something very real. I am Atma, Brahma. This self is Brahman. Self is God. Next verse.
घटे नष्टे यथा व्योम व्योमैव भवति स्फुटम् तथैवोपाधिविलये ब्रह्मैव ब्रह्मवित् स्वयम्. Just as when a pot is broken, the pot space becomes the limitless space, so too, when the conditionings are destroyed, the knower of Brahman becomes Brahman itself.
So actually, language falls short here. So here I have the water glass. Glass space, room space. Pay attention to the glass space. Did I move the glass space? No. Wait a minute, you left me behind. No. There's not really space in the glass, there's glass in space. And the space doesn't move. And if I were to break the glass, The glass space doesn't go, oh, I'm liberated, whoosh, into the room. What happens to the space in the glass? Hmm?
Nothing.
Yeah. Nothing. You are kutasta, still, immovable, achalam. You never move. Nirupaham, without any form or shape. That never changed. And here, even with the destruction of the body, you go nowhere. Next verse.
क्षीरं क्षीरे यथा क्षिप्तम् तैलं तैले जलं जले संयुक् संयुक्तम् एकतां याति तथात्मन्यात्म विन्मुनिः. Just as milk poured into milk, oil into oil, and water into water, each becomes united and one, so too, he who has realized the Atman becomes one with the Atman.
Yeah. So this is poetry. Again, we have to see it that it points, it doesn't define. Again, the individuality doesn't merge into rediscover that you've always been. But something happens, very definitely. This feeling of being a person, this jiva bhavana, does evaporate. You go nowhere. Closest worldly example I've ever found is if you make a tube with your hands and look through it. Your vision is occluded. It's limited, but nothing's happened to your eyeball. You remove your hands and you have peripheral vision, but your eye didn't change. Right now, the self is peeping through the intellect, the mind, and the senses. And it gives me the sense that I am limited. But if I withdraw my attention, it's like removing the tube my hands made. And then the unlimited, vast, empty space of I, not EYE, but I, becomes apparent. And it doesn't get changed. When I look through my hands this way, there's nothing changing my eye. It's never really limited. So also, functioning in the world, this karta, the sense of agency, is necessary. Driving a car, making a meal, doing the laundry. But if you've had that direct experience of manonasha, the destruction of the mind, even for a moment, know that that limited sense of self is not the next verse.
Evam videha kaivalyam sanmattatvam akhanditam brahma bhavam prapadhyaisha yatirnavartate punaha. He does not suffer transmigration, having experienced seclusion as a result of being disembodied and becoming ever identified with the one reality, Brahman.
And so the word here is kaivalya, or was it kevala? Was
Kaivalyam.
kaivalya, yeah, which means aloneness. And it isn't that, oh, now I'm going to live in a little cave. Oh, no, I'm so lonely. No, no, no. When a person realizes their self, they realize the self in everyone. There's only one of us. You see the room from your viewpoint, I see it from mine. You are aware of your body, I'm aware of my body. You're aware of your thoughts and feelings, I'm aware of my thoughts and feelings. But when you look behind your eyes and notice the knower, it's just witnessing consciousness. The self in me is also witnessing consciousness. The self in me is not like the self in you. The self in me is the self. That's the deeper meaning of Kaivalya. So the person of steady wisdom sees the self in everyone, in everything. Next verse.
Sadatmaikatva vijnana dagdha vidyadi vashmanaha amushya brahma bhutatvad brahmana kuta udbhavaha. By realizing the oneness of the Jiva and Brahman, his bodies, gross, subtle, and causal, consisting of ignorance and so on, are burnt, and he becomes Brahman itself. How can Brahman, the unborn, ever have rebirth?
Yes. So this transmigratory soul is really an illusion. Best way that I know to explain it, do you incarnate into a dream? When I dream, it feels like I'm in that world with a dream body and a dream ego. But in reality, I am not in the dream is in me. Do I reincarnate into Tuesday's dream after Monday's dream? No. I go nowhere. The mind just creates that stuff. So for the person of steady wisdom, reincarnation no longer has any meaning. Self is never born. And the cause of the subtle body needing to garner experience is gone. Meaning this Jiva Bhavan, I think I'm a person and I'm incomplete. I'll be happy when, it'll be better if, maybe if I did it differently. All that is gone. So this particular chapter of dreaming fulfills its function. The scriptures say, game over. Nirvana, alone. Next verse.
Maya kliptao bandha mokshao nasta swatmani vastutah yatha rajjao nishkriyayaya sarpa bhasa vinirgamao. Maya conjure up bondage and liberation do not really exist in the reality. Oneself, just as the appearance and disappearance of a snake are not in the robe which undergoes no change.
So, using our very famous metaphor of the snake and the rope is there. And I imagine the snake. Understand, to see that the snake is there is an imagination. To see that I have gotten rid of the snake is also not real. Snake went nowhere because the snake was. So the frame we get in Yoga Vasishta, both bondage and liberation occur to the mind. The self is ever free. The self does not get liberated. Both my bondage, and listen carefully, and my liberation occur in the dream of Maya. This Vedanta is cheap. It's all an illusion. You don't have to do spiritual practices. Why should I be a yogi and strive hard for liberation? It's not real. Shankara says so. I know what I'm going to do. I'll just go shoot heroin because it's not real. If I'm angry at the policeman, I'll just punch you because it's not real. This is a gross misunderstanding. Because my suffering to the ignorant feels very real. Yes, from the standpoint of the self, there is no bondage, there is no liberation. But from the viewpoint of the mind, bondage feels very real. To just say to myself, it's not happening, it's not happening, it's not happening, doesn't do any good. We would call that denial in the modern psychotherapeutic language. I don't need to strive hard for liberation. It's not real. It is. It is. Deeper understanding is it's not the self that gets liberated. The buddhi, human intellect, becomes buddha, awake. In the Vijnana Maya Kosha, we study that, the subtle intellect. For the ignorant, there's this deeply rooted conviction, I'm the body. For the woman or the man of realization, that's gone through direct experience, as the result of spiritual practice. There's the deeply rooted conviction, not that I'm a realized person, but I am Brahman. I'm that grounded being. This brings the mind peace. That's the point. So this teaching at the end of the book invites us to give up being concerned about stupid mind states. Jim, are you enlightened? I've quit asking the question. Now, if you were to ask, do you have any doubts about your essential nature? No doubts. Moment when the mind is quiet, notice the no person there. Don't be evil. Only that is real. Remember our definition philosophically of reality, that which is never subject to negation. You are always that. God, let's see. You are that. Whether you're thinking the thoughts about it or not. Next verse. How many more do we have? I want to try to finish tonight.
11, 12.
I think we'll make it.
आवृत्ते सदसत्वाभ्यां वक्तव्ये बन्धमोक्षणे नावृत्तिर्ब्रह्मण काचित् अन्या भावाद् नावृतं यद्यस्त्यद्वैतहानि स्यात् द्वैतं नो सहते श्रुतिः. When there is the presence or absence of veiling, bondage and liberation can be spoken of. There can be no veiling for Brahman, as it is obvious, there being no second thing besides it. If there is, it will contradict the non-duality of Brahman. The scriptures will never suffer duality.
Yes. So we think of veiling power only when we're identified with the ego, endeavoring to explain my experience of why I feel like a person with problems. Varana Shakti, veiling power. I have to deal with the Vikshepa Shakti, the projection of the ego sense. But in truth, Maya, avidya, never really covers the self. Anybody here feel they're not realized? I'm not realized you. Do you know you're not realized? Oh, yes, I know it. I'm very miserable. Do you exist? Yes, I exist. What's your existence? Misery. Do you know you're miserable? Yes, I know I'm miserable. So even the most ignorant knows I am. I know. They never doubt it. That's the direct experience of the self. No one lacks it. But then on top of that are all these stupid mind states. tall, I'm short, I'm male, I'm female, I'm old, I'm fat, I'm young, I'm pretty, I'm successful, I'm a failure, smart, I'm stupid, I'm loved, I'm not loved. These are all just ideals of self. All of them are mithya. Oh, I'm in bondage. That's also an illusion. I'm an enlightened person now. I've realized the self. That's nonsense too. Does the self get realized? Abandon any personal sense of self. Abandon your belief in the mind itself. Can't think of anything. Abandon any identification with this dream-like body. Next verse.
बन्धश्च मोक्षश्च वृषैव मूढा बुद्धेर्गुणं वस्तु निकल्पयन्ति त्रिगावृतिं मेधकृतां यथा रवौ यतो द्वयासङ्गच्चिदेत क्षरम्. Bondage and liberation are attributes of the intellect which the foolish superimpose upon the reality, as the veiling of the eyes by clouds is superimposed upon the sun. In fact, this immutable reality is absolute knowledge, non-dual and unattached.
So many of us are waiting for some wackadoodle experience. I, the individual, have got it now. I want an enlightenment certificate. Give up trying to be an enlightened person. Rather, do you have any doubts about your essential nature? You know you are that part of this Brahman. Are you convinced about the changeless nature of all? Doubt continues to arise. Continue to do tapas. But to try to be there, I, Jim, am an enlightened person, is like wanting to attend your own funeral. It's a contradiction in terms. So when the jnani begins to see the fundamental unreality of the mind itself, you can't think a real thought. And rather than trying to answer all those questions, you get rid of the doubter. And what's left? Uh-huh. Next verse.
Astiti pratyayo yascha nastiti vastuni buddhireva guna vaito natu nityasya vastunah. The concept that bondage is and the concept that it is not are, with reference to the reality, only attributes of the intellect. Never do they belong to Brahman, the eternal reality.
Yes. So bondage and liberation occur to the mind. The self is ever free. Yourself is never bound. Yourself is never deluded. Why are you concerned about stupid mind states? None of them are real. Stop it. Now, this is not a teaching we give to beginner or even intermediate or kind of advanced students. This is the final teaching for those who do not have doubts about their essential nature, who can easily revel in the self. But whose minds may be throwing up, is this it? Is there more? This doesn't seem like to be enough. I want to get some wacko state. My mind's still doing this. I thought it was going to do that. Nonsense. All of this Maya. It's not real. Drop your concern for stupid mind states. Only you. Don't try to be an enlightened person. And you can tell when someone has that problem because they want to tell you about their experiences. Oh, I've had this. Oh, and I've had that. Oh, I'm really advanced because I've had this. I think I'm getting very close. Nonsense. Does the self have a mind state? Does the self have an experience? Only the self is real. Everything else, without exception, mithya, illusion. Next verse.
Atastau Mayaya kliptau bandhamokshau na chatmani nishkale nishkriye shante niravadhye niranjane advitiye pare tatve vyomat vyovat vyomavat kalpanat kutah. Therefore, bondage and liberation that are conjured up by Maya are not in the Atman. As there can be no limitation regarding the infinite space, how can there be any limitation regarding the supreme reality, which is devoid of parts, devoid of activity, serene, unimpeachable, untainted, and non-dual?
So, in the end, what about this silly mind? What self-realization, what moksha gives it is two simple things. The first I call existential freedom. You're safe. Nothing will touch you. No worldly circumstance out there in the world of the senses or in your body, ever will touch, you'll always say, be at peace. And the second thing is, where's happiness? Because the human mind is a pleasure seeker, pain avoider mechanism. I like to compare it to phototropism in plants. Some plants, if you put them in the window, all the leaves turn towards the sun. You have to rotate the plant, and then they turn again to the sun. It's their nature to turn towards the sun. The human mind, it is its nature to seek the good and avoid misery. What it does. And its only real doubt is where the F is happiness. And what does this process taught the mind? It's not in the world of name and form. The world of name and form is shunyata. Boy. What I'm looking for, I'm looking with. Let go. Come home. Home. Revel in the bliss of the sound. However you choose to do that. It's so simple in the end. The antithesis of that, kama, craving, and dukkha, suffering. They seem to be separate things. I want this, that, and the other thing. When I get this, that, and the other thing, I'll be happy. Not realizing it's the kama itself that is the dukkha, the suffering. They are the same thing. The yogi abandons the struggle to get people, places, things, and conditions in order to feel it. Instead, through deep and profound insight, abandons karma. Give it up. Next verse.
Section 76, Blessed Disciple Liberated. Sakala Nikamachudaswan Tasiddhanta Rupam Param Idam Tiguhyam Darshitam Te Mayadhya Apagata Kalitosham Kama Nirmukta Buddhim Swasuta Vadasaktaktva Avayitva Mumukshumam. Considering you to be a seeker after liberation, as one purged of the taints of this dark age, with mind free from desires, I have today revealed to you again and again, as I would to my own son, the supreme and profound secret the innermost essence of Vedanta, the crest of the Vedas.
Yes, so here the Guru says, because you are a sincere mumukshu, a seeker after liberation, I poured out the whole teaching as I would to someone I love with the deepest intimacy. In a sense, this relationship with the Guru is the most intimate. In this text, you've had the totality of the teaching. Swamiji used to say, Bhagavad Gita is the milk of the Vedas. Vivekachudamani is the cream of the milk. Next verse.
Iti shutva guru vakyam prashnena kritan natihi satena samarnudnyato yayao nirmukta bandhanaha. Hearing the words of the teacher, the disciple, prostrated to him with reverence and obtaining his permission, went his way, freed from bondage.
So understand, the Guru is a temporary psychological device. A good Guru puts himself or herself out of business. Gurus who have all these lifelong dependent relationships see the truth. Yeah. Go be useful. So the Shisha here always has gratitude, always has incredible love for the teacher. But got what he or she came for. Next verse.
Gururevam sadananda sindhau nirma gamanasaha pavayan va sudham sarvam vichachara nirantaraha. And the teacher, his mind immersed in the ocean of eternal bliss, forever wandered about, indeed blessing the whole world.
So the Guru has no idea what's going to happen next. And if, by God's grace, another fit student shows up, she may pause in her journey, pour out the teaching, and wonders it. Next verse.
Section 77, the glory of the textbook. Vidyacharyasya shishyasya samvadenatmalakshanam nirupitam mumukshunam sukhabodhopapattayah. Thus, by means of a dialogue between the teacher and the disciple, the Atman has been indicated for the easy comprehension of seekers after liberation.
So I call this the original handbook to higher consciousness. Idiot in, Jnani out. And again, if you study this text with Swamiji's commentary, with a teacher, and do everything Shankar suggests, you have all that you need to identify the path and the road. Next verse.
Ita midamut padeshandriyantam vihit nirasta samasaschittoshaha bhavasukha virata prashanti chittaha shrutir sikayatya mumukshavoyai. May those men appreciate these salutary teachings who are seekers after liberation, who have cleansed themselves of the taints of the mind by observing the prescribed methods, who have a distaste for worldly enjoyments, who have serene minds, and who take a delight in the scriptures.
So I love this verse because this is specifically for those people who get Vivekachudamani and say, I don't want to do this beginning stuff. Let me go to the end and see what's like. Yeah, I'm pretty smart. I can get the end. So here he identifies, just like back at the beginning, for whom is this text? Just in case we forgot. Next verse.
Sansaradhvani tapabhano kirana prodbhat davyahata khinanam jalakankshya murubhuvi bhrantya paribhramyatam atya sanna sudham bundhim sukhakaram brahmadvayam darsha yant yesha shankara bharati vijayate nirvana sandayini. For those who are afflicted in this samsara by the burning pains caused by the scorching sun rays of the threefold sorrows, adhyatmika, adhidaivika, and adhibhautika, and those who in delusion roam in a desert in search of water, for them here is the glorious message of Shankara, pointing out the ocean of nectar, the non-dual Brahman, within easy reach in order to lead them to liberation.
Yeah. So if we're afflicted by the things out there in the world, by problems with our bodies or by our own interior thoughts and feelings, we want to be freed. This is Shankara's glorious teaching, set out in a systematized way. Easy comprehension from the most basic to the highest knowledge. Is that it?
Yeah.
So we finished Vivekachudamani. And as we always do in the tradition, the next thing you do is what we call swadhyaya. Swadhyaya means your own self-study. So because of that, we go back and we chant the first verse over again. So we restart our study.
Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tama Gocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. My salutation to Sri Sadguru Govinda, who is of the nature of bliss absolute, who can be known only through the import of the essence of Vedanta, and who is beyond the reach of the known instruments of perception.
So again, find out who the Guru is, and you will find out who you are, and you will find out who Brahman is. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Sri Guru Namaha. Hari Om.